I never thought I would find myself in a situation like this, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. My name is Jake, and I've been married to my wife, Melissa, for 6 years. We met in college where we were the perfect couple, the kind everyone assumed would last forever. But somewhere along the way, things started to change, and I was too blind to see it. It began with little things, strange phone calls she'd take in another room, a sudden interest in late-night gym sessions, and a growing distance between us. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just overwhelmed with work, but deep down, I felt something was off. Friends would casually drop comments about how she seemed different lately, more aloof, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. One Saturday afternoon, I had a rare day off and decided to surprise Melissa by cleaning the house and preparing her favorite dinner. I thought it would be a nice gesture to show her how much I appreciated her. As I was cleaning, I noticed her phone buzzing incessantly on the counter. My curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up and saw a message from a contact saved as Brandon, my college roommate. The message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe." My heart sank. I immediately felt nauseous. I knew Brandon from college. He was the kind of guy who always had a knack for charming women. I wanted to believe there could be a reasonable explanation, but I felt anger boiling inside me. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces fell into place. When Melissa walked in, I was already on edge. I confronted her about the message, and her reaction was infuriating. She laughed it off, saying it was just a stupid joke and that I was overreacting. "You know how Brandon is, Jake. He's just messing around. You're being ridiculous," she said with that condescending tone that grates on my nerves. I wanted to shout to demand more answers, but I took a breath and tried to keep my cool. I pushed her for the truth, and after a few minutes of back and forth, she finally admitted it. Not without a slew of excuses and lies, of course. She claimed it was a one-time mistake, and that she was really unhappy in our marriage. She said I didn't pay enough attention to her, that work had consumed my life, and that she just needed someone who made her feel alive again. That excuse stung. I was angry, but mostly I felt crushed. I had been focused on building our future, thinking that meant working hard and providing. I thought we were in this together, but it seems I was living in my own little bubble while she was out looking for excitement with someone else. The emotional roller coaster that followed was intense. I went from shock to rage, then to sadness. I didn't know how to process the betrayal. I felt sickened by the thought of her in bed with Brandon, someone I once called a friend. My mind blurred with images of their affair, and I couldn't shake the feeling of humiliation. After a night of sleepless tossing and turning, I made a decision. This woman, who I once thought was my partner, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. I couldn't just stand by and let her walk all over my heart. I decided that I wouldn't simply let this go. I would show her the consequences of her actions, and that's when the plan for revenge began to take shape. I began to think of how I could turn this situation around, not just for my own sanity, but to ensure Melissa understood what she had lost. There was more to life than just being a victim of betrayal. I was determined to rise like a phoenix from the ashes of this broken relationship, and I would make sure she was aware of my success every step of the way. After that painful confrontation with Melissa, I felt a surge of purpose, a determination to rise above the betrayal and to not let her infidelity define me. I knew I had to channel my anger and hurt into something productive. I started working on a plan, and with every detail, I envisioned my revenge. I had always wanted to start my own business, an online tech venture, but I had shelved those dreams for years, prioritizing stability in our marriage. Now it was time to put those dreams into action. I began researching, drafting a business plan, and networking. I tapped into my college connections, and soon enough, I found myself diving deep into the startup world. The first step was to secure funding. I reached out to old classmates who had gone on to successful careers in tech and finance. To my surprise, many were willing to support my vision, excited to collaborate and help out an old friend. The more I poured my energy into this project, the less I thought about Melissa and her betrayal. At first, I was still reeling from the emotional impact. I'd have moments of weakness where memories would flood my mind, reminding me of the life we had built together. But those moments became fewer and further apart. I was transforming my pain into ambition. The more traction my business gained, the more I felt a sense of empowerment. I learned to code, to market, and to strategize. I poured every ounce of time and energy into creating this venture. Within months, things began to take off. My startup, a platform for freelancers to connect with clients more easily, gained traction faster than I expected. I was receiving positive feedback, and soon I found myself in the position of hearing a small team. It was exhilarating and honestly a bit surreal. I had gone from being the heartbroken husband to a budding entrepreneur, filled with ambition and vision. Meanwhile, Melissa was blissfully unaware of how my life was changing. She had assumed I would fall apart after the affair, that I would wallow in sorrow and allow her to walk back into my life whenever she felt like it. But she underestimated me. The more successful I became, the more I realized how toxic our relationship had been. I no longer craved her validation or approval. Instead, I thrived on my own achievements. As my business started gaining recognition, I began attending industry events and networking conferences. It was empowering to see my hard work paying off, and I was meeting people who inspired me to work even harder. I surrounded myself with a new circle of friends who championed my vision and supported me in ways that Melissa never had. This new environment fueled my ambition further. But I had to keep my focus on my ultimate goal, revenge. I wanted Melissa to see the life she had thrown away. I started to think about how I could make that happen. I could picture her scrolling through social media, seeing my posts about my successes. I could already imagine her feelings of regret, knowing that she had chosen the wrong path. I also wanted to make sure she understood that I would not settle for being the victim. I wanted her to experience the same emptiness she had inflicted upon me. For months, I had kept my head down, pouring everything into my business. But it was time to shift gears. I wanted to show her just how far I had come, and the best way to do that was to invite her into my new world. I decided to throw an industry launch party for my business, a celebration of everything I had achieved. I would invite all the people I had met along the way, including a few mutual friends from our college days. And of course, I would extend a personal invitation to Melissa. It was the perfect opportunity to showcase my success and to make her realize just what she had lost. I could hardly contain my excitement as I planned the details of the event. I wanted it to be impressive, something that would leave a mark. I envisioned a venue downtown, a slick atmosphere with a great view of the city skyline. I hired a catering service and arranged for a DJ, ensuring it would be a night to remember. Little did Melissa know, the night was going to be all about me reclaiming my power and showing her the man she had underestimated. As the launch date approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. I was ready to step into the spotlight, not just for my business, but to prove to myself that I could move on from the heartbreak and emerge stronger than ever. I wanted to redefine my story, and this was my chance to do just that. The night of the launch party arrived faster than I could have imagined. I had spent weeks planning every detail, and as I stood outside the venue, I took a moment to appreciate the view. The city lights twinkled like stars, and I felt a mix of anticipation and nervous energy pulsing through me. This was it, the culmination of my hard work and the moment I had been waiting for to show Melissa exactly what she'd lost. As the guests began to arrive, I could feel the atmosphere shift. People mingled, laughter erupted, and the energy in the room was electric. I was greeted by familiar faces, old friends, business acquaintances, and fellow entrepreneurs, all there to celebrate this new chapter in my life. Each handshake and pat on the back reminded me of how far I had come and reinforced my decision to rise from the ashes of my past. Then I spotted her, Melissa. She walked in with a few friends, her usual confidence radiating off her. She looked stunning in a little black dress, but I couldn't help but notice the slight hesitation in her step when she spotted me across the room. I felt a surge of satisfaction, I wanted her to feel the impact of my transformation. I made sure to actively engage with my guests, chatting about my new venture, sharing my plans for the future, and basking in the attention. I even caught myself glancing over at Melissa, who was trying to play it cool but clearly felt out of place. I could see her scanning the room, taking in my growing circle of friends and the excitement that surrounded me. I wanted her to realize that she had chosen poorly and that I was thriving without her. As the night progressed, I decided it was time for the official announcement. I gathered everyone's attention and stood in front of the crowd, a sense of pride swelling within me. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate the launch of my new business, Freelance Connect. This platform is about bringing people together, creating opportunities, and empowering freelancers to take control of their careers. I announced, my voice steady and confident. Applause erupted, and I could see Melissa's expression change. Her eyes widened, and I could feel her surprise radiating off her. I continued, I'd like to take a moment to thank those who supported me along the way and helped make this dream a reality. It's been a long journey, and I'm grateful to be where I am today. As I spoke, I noticed Melissa's friends whispering to her, likely trying to process the sudden revelation of my success. I could see the gears turning in her mind, and I relished every moment of it. This was my chance to show her that I was no longer the man she could push around. I had transformed into someone she didn't recognize. When I finished my speech, I felt a rush of adrenaline. The applause felt like a warm embrace, a validation of everything I had worked for. I scanned the crowd, and my eyes landed on Melissa again. She was clapping, but there was a forced smile on her face. I could only imagine the internal battle she was having, regret, jealousy, and disbelief all swirling inside her. As the night continued, I made the rounds, chatting with guests and celebrating my success. It was exhilarating to see people genuinely excited about my venture, but I was also keenly aware of Melissa's presence. I watched as she attempted to mingle, but it was clear that she was struggling to hold her composure. At one point, I saw her cornered by one of my friends, Sarah. I could see Sarah pointing in my direction, likely talking about my recent achievements. Melissa's expressions shifted from feigned indifference to something more vulnerable, and I felt a flicker of satisfaction knowing that the reality of my success was hitting her hard. Later in the evening, I decided to give Melissa a chance to speak with me. As I approached her, I could see the conflict reflected in her eyes. "Hey Jake," she said, her tone guarded. "I didn't know you were doing this well." "Yeah, it's been a wild ride," I replied casually, trying to maintain an air of confidence. "Thanks for coming tonight. I figured you might want to see what I've been up to." Her gaze dropped, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of remorse in her eyes. "I'm glad you're happy," she said, but there was an edge to her words that hinted at her discomfort. "Happy? You mean successful?" I shot back, not able to hide the bitterness creeping into my tone. "It's funny how people can wish you well while they're the ones who set the fire." Melissa's expression shifted, turning defensive. "That was a mistake, Jake. You know that," she snapped, almost in a whisper. "I was lost and I didn't think." "You didn't think?" I interrupted, feeling the anger boil over. "You didn't think when you jumped into bed with Brandon, did you?" The tension between us was palpable, and I could see the tears welling in her eyes. It was a moment that felt charged with everything we had been through, the love, the betrayal, the hurt. But in that moment I stood my ground. I was no longer the man she could manipulate or control. I was someone new, someone who had taken back his power. "I have to go," she said quietly, turning away. I nodded, watching her walk away, and amidst the crowd I felt both victorious and hollow. I had got the reaction I wanted, but it didn't feel as satisfying as I had imagined. The reality was that we had shared a life, and watching her walk away was still a painful reminder of what had been lost. But I reminded myself that this was just the beginning. I was on a path to greatness, and I wouldn't let her betrayal define me. I was ready to embrace my future, no matter how uncertain it felt. The journey was just getting started, and I was prepared to rise even higher. After the launch party, I felt like I was living on a high that I didn't want to come down from. The success I had experienced was intoxicating, and I was determined to ride that wave as far as it would take me. My business started gaining serious traction and I found myself in the spotlight more often. Networking opportunities came pouring in, and I was quickly becoming a recognized name in the tech community. As my venture grew, so did my confidence. I was invited to speak at conferences, to share my journey of resilience and success. People wanted to hear from the guy who had turned heartbreak into a thriving business. I loved every second of it. But amidst all the newfound attention and accolades, there was still a lingering thought in the back of my mind: Melissa. It was hard not to think about her, especially when I would see her name pop up on social media. She was still active, posting about her life, her adventures, and her attempts to move on. I could tell she was struggling, trying to find happiness while seeing me succeed. It was a bittersweet reminder of what I had lost, but I had to keep reminding myself that I was better off now. I had successfully distanced myself from the emotional turmoil that had consumed me after discovering her infidelity. I surrounded myself with positive influences, friends who genuinely cared about my well-being and success. They celebrated my achievements and encouraged me to keep pushing forward. I was finally in a place where I was excited about the future. But then, one evening, I received a message that shook me to my core. It was from an old college buddy, Dave, who had remained friends with both Melissa and me. His message was simple but jarring. "Hey man, have you seen Melissa's latest post? She's dating Brandon now." I felt my stomach twist into knots. I didn't want to be the guy who obsessively checked up on my ex. I had made a conscious effort to move on, but a part of me couldn't help but be curious. I opened Instagram and found her latest post featuring a picture of her and Brandon, looking cozy as they stood atop a scenic overlook, the sun setting behind them. She was smiling brightly, and the caption read, "Sometimes you find what you didn't know you were missing. Red new beginnings." I felt a rush of anger, sadness, and something else I didn't want to admit: envy. How could she move on so quickly? How could she be that happy with someone who had been my friend? I didn't want to care, but it stung. I took a deep breath and shut my phone off. No good could come from dwelling on this. Over the next few days, I tried to shake off the feeling. I focused on my business and the opportunities it was bringing. I was closing deals and expanding my team, and I found myself in a groove. Yet the image of Melissa and Brandon lingered in my mind. I couldn't help but wonder if she truly realized what she had lost or if she was genuinely happy. Then one night, I was out with friends celebrating a recent contract I had landed when I noticed a familiar figure at the bar. Melissa was there, sitting with Brandon and a couple of other friends. My heart raced. I hadn't seen her in person since the launch party, and here she was, seemingly unfazed by everything that had happened. I tried to ignore her and continued enjoying my night, but it was hard not to keep glancing in her direction. She looked beautiful, her laughter ringing out like music, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of nostalgia. The memories of the good times we'd had flooded my mind, and I felt torn between wanting to forget her and the warmth of the past. As the night wore on, I decided to take a walk outside to clear my head. I stepped onto the patio, where the cool night air hit my face. I stood there for a moment, breathing deeply, trying to dispel the remnants of my conflicted feelings. But just as I was about to head back inside, I heard a voice call my name. I turned to see Melissa approaching. She looked hesitant, and a part of me wanted to turn and walk away, but curiosity got the better of me. I stayed put, crossing my arms defensively. "Hey, Jake," she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I didn't think I'd see you here." "Yeah, just out with friends," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "I saw your launch party. It looked amazing," she said, and I could hear a hint of sincerity in her voice. "I'm really happy for you." "Thanks," I said curtly, feeling the tension between us. "I'm doing well." There was an awkward silence before she spoke. "Again, can we talk for a minute? I'd like to explain a few things." I hesitated, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to hear her side, to understand her perspective, but another part of me wanted to keep my distance, to remember how far I had come. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Sure." We stepped away from the noise of the bar, finding a quieter corner on the patio. The atmosphere felt charged, and I could see the nervousness in her eyes. "Look, I know things ended badly between us," she began, her voice soft. "I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for how I handled everything. It was wrong and I regret the way I treated you. I felt a mix of anger and sadness, but I kept my composure. You hurt me, Melissa. You were my partner and I trusted you, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Then you threw it all away for a fling. I know, she said, her eyes glistening with what looked like genuine remorse. At the time, I was confused. I thought I wanted something different, but it was a mistake, and I see that now. I've realized how much I took you for granted. Her words resonated with me, and I could see she was sincere, but I was also aware of the pain her actions had caused. So now you're with Brandon, I asked, my tone sharp. Is that what you wanted? She hesitated for a moment, and I could see the uncertainty in her expression. It's complicated, she admitted. I thought I wanted that, but I don't know if it's what I really want. I see how successful you are now, and I can't help but feel regret. I felt a rush of emotions at her admission. It wasn't the validation I had expected, but something deeper, a recognition of the consequences of her actions. I'm moving on, Melissa. I've built a life for myself, and I'm proud of that. I don't want to dwell on the past. She nodded slowly, understanding the weight of my words. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I hope you can find happiness too, she said softly. I took a moment to process her words. It was hard to let go of the hurt, but I realized that holding on to anger would only anchor me to the past. Thank you for saying that, I replied, feeling the tension ease a bit. I want you to be happy too, just not with me. We shared a moment of silence, and I could see the sadness in her eyes, but I knew this was the closure we both needed. I had fought hard to reclaim my power, and now it was time to let go of the past. Take care of yourself, Melissa, I said finally, turning to head back inside. I hope you figure things out. As I walked away, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had faced her, confronted the past, and emerged stronger. I was ready to embrace my future and everything it had to offer. The chapter with Melissa was closed, and I was ready to write a new one filled with success, happiness, and the promise of new beginnings. The encounter with Melissa that night stirred up a lot of emotions, but it ultimately helped me find closure. I had faced her, heard her apologies, and realized that I was no longer the person who needed her validation or approval. I was free, and that realization was empowering. In the weeks that followed, my business continued to flourish. I had landed several high-profile clients, and my platform was gaining traction in the freelance community. The momentum was exhilarating, and with each passing day, I was reminded of just how far I had come. I was no longer the heartbroken husband. I was a successful entrepreneur, and I had the support of a growing circle of friends and colleagues who believed in me. I dove headfirst into my work, setting new goals and pushing myself to achieve even more. I began planning for expansion, considering taking on additional investors and launching new features for my platform. The thrill of entrepreneurship was invigorating, and I found myself immersed in my passion, something I had neglected for far too long. But as I was busy building my empire, I couldn't shake the feeling that I still had some unfinished business with Melissa. I had been focused on my own happiness, but a part of me felt a need to ensure she understood the impact of her choices. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about demonstrating that I could thrive without her and that I was not defined by her actions. One evening, as I was heading home from work, a thought struck me. Why not extend an olive branch? I could invite her to collaborate on a project that aligned with both of our interests. It would be a way to show her that I held no grudges, while also demonstrating the progress I had made. I considered creating a workshop for freelancers and inviting her as a co-host. It would give her a glimpse of my success and allow me to show her that I was indeed moving on. After a few days of deliberation, I reached out to her through a message. I took a deep breath as I typed, trying to strike the right balance between professionalism and friendship. Hey, Melissa, I hope you're doing well. I've been thinking about how we could potentially collaborate on a freelance workshop for aspiring professionals. I believe it could be a great opportunity for both of us. Let me know what you think. As soon as I sent the message, I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Was this a bad idea? Had I opened a can of worms that I wasn't prepared to deal with? But deep down, I felt a sense of confidence that I hadn't experienced in a long time. I wanted to show her that I was not only moving on but also capable of creating something impactful. To my surprise, Melissa responded the next day with enthusiasm. "Hey, Jake, I would love to collaborate on that workshop. I think it's a fantastic idea. Let's meet up to discuss the details." We arranged to meet at a coffee shop that we had frequented during our college days. I felt a mix of nostalgia and anxiety as I approached the familiar location. Would this be awkward? Would we slip back into old habits of banter and flirtation? When I arrived, I spotted her sitting at a table, a nervous smile on her face. As I approached, I noticed she had changed since I last saw her. She seemed more grounded, more mature. We exchanged pleasantries, discussing our lives since our last encounter, and I could feel the tension start to dissipate. "Thanks for agreeing to meet," I said, taking a seat. "I think we can create something really special together." "I appreciate you reaching out," she replied, her voice sincere. "It's nice to reconnect and work on something positive." As we began brainstorming ideas for the workshop, I felt a sense of camaraderie building between us. We shared our visions, discussed potential topics, and even laughed about our college days. It felt good to collaborate, something that had always been a strength of ours. I couldn't help but feel a flicker of the chemistry that had once existed between us, but I quickly pushed that thought aside. This was about creating something new and powerful, not about rekindling old flames. I was in a different place now, and I had no desire to revisit the past. Over the next few weeks, we worked diligently on the workshop. We reached out to other freelancers for input, created promotional materials, and set a date for the event. It was exhilarating to see everything come together, and I couldn't deny the satisfaction I felt in collaborating with her again. As the day of the workshop approached, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. I knew that this event could be a success, a way to empower others just like I had empowered myself. I was excited to showcase our combined expertise and demonstrate how far I had come since the collapse of our relationship. On the day of the workshop, the turnout exceeded our expectations. Freelancers from various backgrounds filled the room, eager to learn and network. As I stood on stage, looking out at the audience, I felt a sense of pride wash over me. I had turned my pain into purpose, and I was able to share that journey with others. Melissa and I co-presented, and I watched her flourish in the spotlight. She had insights and experiences that resonated with the audience, and it was clear that she was passionate about helping others succeed. It was a beautiful moment, seeing her thrive in her element, and I realized that this collaboration was not just about revenge or proving a point. It was about growth and healing. After the workshop, as people mingled and networked, I caught Melissa's eye. She smiled, a genuine smile that spoke volumes. "I didn't know you had this in you," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "You've really come a long way." "Thanks, Melissa, I couldn't have done it without you," I admitted. "It's been a journey, but I'm grateful for the lessons learned." As the evening progressed and we celebrated our success, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. This event had marked a new chapter, not just in my professional life, but also in my personal journey. I had transformed my pain into something beautiful, and I was ready to embrace whatever the future had in store, whether that involved Melissa or not. In that moment, I realized that true revenge wasn't about hurting the person who had wronged you. It was about rising above the hurt and creating a life filled with purpose, passion, and success. I had done just that, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. As I wrapped up the evening of the workshop, a sense of fulfillment enveloped me. The event had not only been a success, it had also marked a significant milestone in my journey toward personal growth and healing. I had taken the steps necessary to reclaim my life, my happiness, and my purpose. Melissa and I shared a genuine moment of connection amidst the buzz of conversations and laughter. Lingering in the air. "I'm really proud of you," she said, her voice sincere. "You've accomplished so much. I can see how passionate you are about helping others." I smiled, feeling appreciation for her words. "Thank you, Melissa. It's been quite a journey, and I'm glad we could work together on this. I think it's important for both of us to continue growing no matter where life takes us." She nodded, and for a brief moment we stood in comfortable silence, reflecting on how far we had both come. I could see the remorse in her eyes from the choices she had made, but I no longer felt the weight of resentment. Instead, I felt empathy for her journey, realizing that she too was on a path of self-discovery. As the crowd began to dwindle and the excitement of the event faded, I felt a sense of closure settle over me. It was time to move on completely. I think this is a new beginning for both of us, I said, breaking the silence. We can take these experiences and use them to shape our futures. Absolutely, she replied, her smile warm. I'm looking forward to what comes next for both of us. We exchanged a few more pleasantries before parting ways, and as I left the venue, I felt lighter than I had in a long time. The weight of my past, the hurt, and the betrayal had been lifted. I was no longer defined by my relationship with Melissa or the heartbreak I had endured. Instead, I was standing at the forefront of a new chapter in my life, filled with promise and opportunity. In the weeks that followed, I focused on expanding my business and nurturing the positive relationships I had built. I was approached by investors who saw potential in my platform, and soon I was negotiating deals that would propel my startup to new heights. I was creating something that mattered, something that brought people together and empowered them to pursue their passions. Throughout this journey, I occasionally thought about Melissa, but it was no longer with anger or bitterness. Instead, I hoped that she was finding her own way and learning from the past. I didn't harbor the desire for revenge anymore. The best revenge was, indeed, living well. Then one evening, as I was scrolling through social media, I came across a post from Melissa. She was promoting her own freelance coaching business, showcasing her journey and the lessons she had learned. I felt a sense of pride for her, recognizing that she was carving out her own path just as I was. I realized that our lives had been intertwined, and while our relationship had ended painfully, the experiences we shared had ultimately shaped us into who we were becoming. It was a bittersweet reminder of the love we once had, but also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. I decided to reach out to her, not out of obligation, but out of a genuine desire to connect. Hey, Melissa, I saw your latest post and I just wanted to say congratulations on your coaching business. It looks amazing and I'm proud of you for taking that step. To my relief, she responded with warmth. Thank you, Jake. That means a lot coming from you. I appreciate your support. I feel like I'm finally finding my footing again. Our conversation continued, light and friendly, with no lingering bitterness or unresolved tension. It felt good to reconnect, and I could sense a mutual understanding that we were both moving forward. As I reflected on my journey, I recognized how far I had come since that fateful day when I discovered Melissa's betrayal. I had turned my pain into purpose, built a successful business, and forged new connections that enriched my life. I had learned that sometimes, the most significant transformations happen when we face our deepest fears and endure our greatest trials. In the end, my story was not just about revenge. It was about resilience, growth, and the power of moving on. I had emerged from the ashes stronger than before, and I was excited to embrace the future, whatever it might hold. As I closed my laptop and looked out at the city skyline from my office, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was ready for new adventures, new challenges, and new relationships. Life was waiting, and I was prepared to seize it with open arms, confident in the knowledge that I had the strength to face whatever came next.